So today is the day that we've been building up to with the i30N, because ever since I've got this car, I'd never planned on leaving it standard. And you may have got the hints from the previous videos, but we have actually got a... Hello?
Chris, mate, you've got to do something about that i30N. It sounds shocking, mate.
That's a bit harsh, but I have got some bits to make the i30N sound a bit better, and it sounds like Ben wants to help out. And by the way, I promise we'll come back to that a bit soon. We've actually come to Warrington and had the car trailered here to the home of the boys at Evil GT.
Welcome up north, mate.
And we're going to be doing something today to play with the sound of the Hyundai i30N. Keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. And there's a few ways in which we're going to do that. The first of which being this. A Scorpion turbo back exhaust. Now out of the box, the Hyundai i30N is definitely not the worst sounding car. It's got a valved exhaust which pops and bangs, and all sorts of cool stuff, but a Scorpion one is going to be better. That is a big old package you got there, mate.
It is.
But before we start even looking at taking the factory exhaust off, I think we've got to do a sound check so we can compare it to later in the video to see how the new one sounds. I mean, for a factory exhaust, that don't sound too bad. Rate it out of 10.
That is already pretty Asbo. That's a strong 7.5 out of 10.
Strong 7.5. I'm not even sure if that is the factory exhaust, because I've never had a proper look underneath the car, so maybe we should check it out right now. So starting at the back, this is definitely a factory back box.
It is.
We can go a little bit further towards the engine. This all looks factory to me.
Right, okay.
That looks factory.
Yeah. You
Factory.
know what you're looking at, I have no idea.
I'm saying that is not factory.
That doesn't look factory to me.
That's not factory at all.
No.
That is a GPF delete, that is.
So that explains the Asbo pops and bangs, and
It definitely
fact
does.
it's quite loud.
It definitely does. So we may not get as much of a difference as what we first thought, but maybe that does answer. Yeah, that answers that question. And then we don't really know what's up here. It could have a decap. I can't really see, so I can't really tell. Incredible insight for you there. I think the first thing that we should do is spray something on all these bolts. Some penetrating solution. So that's step one.
Penetration. There you go, mate. Only the best in this garage.
Is that high quality penetrating solution?
It is.
The rubbers, to make them easier to get off, if that works. I'm going to do the bolts.
I anticipate they're going to be the easiest ones.
So I think we're going to crack this one off by taking the exhaust off in sections, starting at the back, working forwards. Benji, are you ready?
Born ready, me, mate. What I'll be good at, though, is holding the camera for you whilst you crack on.
Fantastic, mate. That's all I needed. So we start removal of the back box by taking off the two 14mm nuts which hold the back box to the midsection. There is also a exhaust valve to unplug on the driver's side, and also the two rubbers which actually hang the exhaust from the car.
Waiting for you. Waiting for you. Show me what you made of.
Then it was time for the midsection itself. Two 14mm nuts held that to the GPF delete, which is at the front of the car, and then again two rubbers, and then we can get that off the car as well. Now the GPF delete was a little bit tricky to undo just because it was attached to the flexi and would remove the rest of the exhaust already, so it probably would have been easier to break these nuts off first. But with a bit of teamwork, we got them cracked off and got that removed off the car as well. Now the next bit is a little bit tricky for you guys to see. So what we've got up here is the flexi section, and to unbolt that from the downpipe, there's two nuts which hold it on a similar flange up right by the engine. And to get to this, we had to use a whole collection of extensions on a ratchet to even get near them, so it wasn't the easiest thing to get to, definitely. But with Ben positioning the socket and me delivering the muscle power, we eventually got them cracked off and got the flexi section removed too. I've just done a cracking job.
We already have our first casualty.
I lowered the ramp down onto the cannon, it's the only one we got, so I can't believe that. Do you want one?
Oh, I love that. Do you know what? Actually looks decent.
It does, yeah, it's a good pour. So in just less than an hour, we managed to get all of the parts of the exhaust off apart from the downpipe, which is probably where things are going to get a little bit trickier. What do you reckon, Mill Mush?
Well, there's not much room back
There's
there,
not, no.
Let's be honest. And looking from underneath...
Let me make some more room.
Ah, there we go. Well, that's cracked it then. I don't know what it is. Worried about. I'm assuming you've got to take this heat. Why is it still so hot under it?
I don't know. Yeah, let's get these heat shields off, I reckon, and then we can diagnose the situation from there.
What do you want there, Doris? 10mm?
I think that is a 10mm, yeah, I think it is. So armed with the 10mm, we can start taking off the bolts which hold the heat shield to the turbo, and also remove things like the lambda sensor, which we're going to need to remove later to get the downpipe off as well. This turbo is mounted slightly differently to what you'll see on most road cars, because it's like a top mounted turbo, so the turbo sits right up by the bulkhead near the top of the engine bay, where most that you'll see will sit further down, more towards the bottom, which does make it easier to access certain parts of it, but also means that the downpipe is going to be longer and therefore more tricky to remove. Right, there is a heat shield bolt in what I can see as the most stupid place. Do you want to show them where it is, Ben?
Well, I'd love to, mate, but I can't see it myself. It's underneath. It's underneath this bit of the block. Just, I can't even get my hands to it, but...
Shall I put a finger on it?
Yeah, okay. It's down there.
It's... Well, yeah. It's that bit that pokes out directly underneath that. How the hell are you supposed to get anything on that? I can't think of a good answer.
No idea, mate.
I know. How about this?
Yes, bend it out. That is definitely... Yeah, we'll leave it where it is.
Okay. To be fair, finding that bolt being quite hard to get to was a bit of a nasty surprise.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. But not as bad a surprise as buying a car with hidden history that you didn't know about. But that is not something you're going to have to worry about when using Car Vertical, who have sponsored today's video and have a new look and layout to show you as well. Car Vertical is a used car history checker with a difference. So just like Ben is digging down in the deep depths of this engine bay to try and find a bolt, Car Vertical digs down into the deep depths of the internet to find the history on a car that you're potentially about to buy.
Beautifully put.
Thank you, mate. And it's so easy to use. All you have to do is type your reg plate or your VIN number into Car Vertical's website, and Car Vertical will scour the internet to find a report for your car. Take, for example, this Audi S3 just here. So we can see instantly on the Car Vertical report that it has green ticks for theft and financial status, which is all good, but it does have some nasty warning lights for the mileage and also for previous damage. And straight away we can scroll into the photos section and see the photos of the car when it was at the auction site. Now, if this car in particular was being sold as a straight and true example, you can see here that that seller would definitely be lying. The good news with this car is it's not outstanding as stolen, and Car Vertical's checked 35 different countries to confirm that. But we can also see there is a discrepancy in the mileage, because on the mileage graph it shows you exactly where the miles were rolled back. So again, another red flag for that car. And then in the damage report it shows you how many times the car has been damaged, and then the car is actually marked as a category S insurance write-off, which definitely isn't great. Car Vertical also gives you the timeline of the car and everything that's ever been recorded that's happened to it as well. So to get a full comprehensive report on a car that you're potentially about to buy, or a friend or family member's car, use my link in the description or discount code Chris, and that's going to save you a nice chunk of cash off your Car Vertical report. So thank you Car Vertical for sponsoring this video, but now I think Ben's got a question for us.
How brave are you feeling?
Not very, to be honest with you, because to get these off can be a nightmare. We've got these 4 bolts for the downpipe onto the turbo left to take off, and I think maybe a bracket down the bottom, which sounds super easy, but the problem that I've heard is that...
That's what I do.
So the problem that I've heard is that these are really prone to snapping, so I've drenched it in high quality penetration fluid.
Yeah.
And... yeah, a full cup pretty much. It's all inside the downpipe now and everything. The other thing we can do is get them hot, but apart from that, if they snap, then that means taking the turbo off to then repair it, which I don't want to do. Do you want to do that?
I don't want to do that, mate.
Me neither. So it seems we have one chance to get these downpipe bolts out, because if we get it wrong, it makes the job so much bigger. So we start by getting an idea of how tight the bolts are, and then going straight for the trickiest one around the back at the bottom. There's no way this is the correct way of doing it, but we have 2 extensions, a wobbly socket, and a deep reach 14, and it seems to just about be working for the most awkward bolt. The other ones seem like a doddle compared, but I might have just jinxed it. Thankfully, I didn't jinx it. That one did come out, so then I could start taking out the other 3, and then that was the downpipe unbolted from the turbo, and we can go back underneath the car.
So that other bracket, mate.
It's around the other side.
Yeah. How the?
Oh, I can see one of them.
How the?
Oh, I can see him. I can see him.
Can you?
Yeah. You can just make it. I'm going to put an arrow on the screen now, so you guys can see it. Ben can't.
I was going to say, I'm glad you lot can see it, because I can't.
And you can just about make them out. There you go.
just through there. So we're going to go, instead of going up through the back of the subframe, we're going to go up through the middle of it. Much easier.
Much easier.
So once we'd figured out how to get to those downpipe bracket bolts, we then went up through the subframe and with a couple of extensions and a wobbly socket and a bit of teamwork again, managed to get the socket on there and crack those bolts off. I'm not sure if this is the correct thing to do, but I heard that you have to drop the subframe to be able to get the downpipe off, so that's what we started doing. It was quite easy to do. There was a couple of brackets which we had to remove and then 4 bolts which actually bolt the subframe up into the car. We didn't actually want to take this off, we just wanted to drop it down by an inch or 2 just to give us a little bit more room to play with in order to get the downpipe out from the engine bay. And this seemed to do exactly the trick. It managed to give us that little bit more room to play with so we could get a bit of access to the lower lambda sensor. So once I'd unbolted that, that gave us loads more room to play with, and then we could finally get it out.
Yep. Now, how are we looking? Yes! We are looking. I can see the head. Yeah! There you go, mate. Hold that above your head with pride. What an absolute job. If anybody asks again, do either of us want to do a
I30N downpipe. I reckon we could do that in 2 hours now, you know.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to though.
I've got to say a massive thank you to the guys at Scorpion for sending me out this turbo back exhaust. How kind is that of them? But now me and Ben are going to have another fight with the car and try and get this downpipe on.
Let's go!
You can't save it now 'cause I'm gone. Yeah, you finally realize you're wrong.
So this was the exact opposite of what we did in the first place. It's downpipe in first, we went up through the bottom. Again with a bit of wrestling, it wasn't the easiest thing to get into place, but we could get that bolted up top.
You'll be sat there watching alone, and the things you claim that I lack, you
And once that was in, we could plug in the second lambda sensor, which we had tightened up when the downpipe was halfway up towards the top, and we can put in the pre-cat lambda as well.
got so much left to say, but I'll take my word.
And then it was back underneath to tighten up those tricky downpipe bracket bolts too.
You want me to pay, and your eyes they say.
Once that was fastened in, we could then put in the flexi section, and Ben must have been feeling pretty accomplished.
We need like some sort of, award and that.
You mean like a certificate?
Yeah.
Maybe I can get one in the post to him in the future or something, but he's got that in place and sat on the rubbers and the studs, and then it was my turn to get in there with a couple of extensions and a wobbly socket and get it tightened up. After that, it was time for the OPF section, which in this Scorpion exhaust has got a resonator in there too. You can opt not to have the resonator, but as I've learned from my BMW, I don't want it too loud.
Things you claim that I lack, you can't take.
Oh, that was satisfying.
Nice, weren't it?
And from here, the exhaust really just fell into place. It was the midsection to go in, which is just held in with a clamp and a hanger, and then it was onto the back section, including the back box as well. One thing I really like is the look of this exhaust, because you can see the polished stainless steel back boxes whilst the car's on the floor, which I think looks really good. Once everything was in place, Ben just went around all of the clamps and tightened those up to make sure we weren't going to get any knocks or rattles.
Now we have most of the exhaust on, including the back box. It is now time. Ben's favourite bit.
What?
Putting the tip in. These snazzy new massive tips, which definitely do pass the fist test, which should fit on there, something like that.
So while the lads were fitting up the tip on one side, I transferred over the active exhaust valve from the original exhaust into the Scorpion one, which means we're going to be able to retain the active exhaust flap in this aftermarket exhaust, which is wicked. And Ben very kindly fit that up for us as the final piece of the exhaust, but we still had more work to do the next morning.
So it is nearly 10 AM, Chris is absolutely nowhere to be seen, so I've decided to crack on with this Hyundai myself, put these back on. So these bits, I don't even know what they do, but they obviously bolt to the subframe and over here to the actual sill. So they're all bolted up, this bit of heat shield is bolted up too, so that's all done.
Hey, Mush.
Afternoon, Princess, where are you?
I'm just in Starbucks.
Good morning.
Nice of you, morning? Morning?
It's morning somewhere.
Are you joking? Nice of you to join us, mate.
Well, I thought I'd come and make your day a bit better and bring you
Oh, what a guy. Thank you very much.
I nearly got him to write Bay on it for you, but we didn't quite.
Thanks very much. Right, listen, whilst you've been giving it Zeds, I have lambda sensors in, heat shields are all on, bolted correctly, yeah, give them a touch. Bits underneath are done as well.
You're phenomenal.
Well, what else are you putting on it?
Ask me about what I've got.
What have you got?
Well, funny you should ask that. Come over here. A company called Race Chip have sent me some Go Faster bits. So this is a plug-in tuning box for the I30N.
That's what we want. Hey, this looks alright.
I know, yeah, it's the part, this. I'll be honest with you, I don't know because I haven't opened it yet. This is the first time I've opened it, so we're opening it together. So I'm guessing that plugs in somehow. Cable ties.
There you go. That's all you need.
I know how to use those. We're going to figure this out in about 4 seconds and somehow turn my car from 270 brake into 300.
Ooh.
Yes. I think I've got the gist of it anyway. And that goes into there, and this plugs around in there somewhere, yeah. And then we just make it look all neat. That's what I think. I might be wrong.
Installing this was actually a little bit less complicated than it actually looks. Essentially, you just plug the loom in between 3 sensors on the engine and run those into the box and then tuck that box away somewhere nice and neat. So it's actually pretty easy.
So we've got 3 main tuning settings on the performance box. We've got Eco, Sport and Race. Ben, which one are we going to pick?
Race, obviously.
Thank you very much. Race it is. So now we have changed the sound and the flow of the exhaust. We have increased the performance, but we have got a pretty janky intake at the moment. Even though this is Lamborghini certified, it needs upgrading.
So we have had a package delivered from Forge. And in here...
You want me to do the honours, mate?
please. I appreciate it. So this is a Forge Motorsports induction kit for the I30N. So we've got a much beefier intake pipe here. Ooh.
She's a beast.
That is a nice cone.
That pops onto the end of there.
I'd guess so, yeah.
And then we're good to go. All right, mate. Well, over to you.
I thought you wanted to do this bit.
I'm doing it. Brilliant.
So once I'd removed the factory intake pipe, I could then replace this with the new Forge Motorsport one. This bolts into place under one of the clips for the engine cover and then slips on with the silicone joiner. Then all we had to do was reattach a few of the hoses which linked onto that intake pipe, tighten everything up and then fit up that absolutely massive air filter. Now, I know some of these open air filter kits are a bit controversial and there is a little bit of debate to how much benefit they actually have, but one thing they do is give you lots of cool turbo noises, so you can't complain at that.
Now, as we've seen earlier, I did actually have a resonator delete or an OPF delete pipe already fitted on the car. That's why it's a little bit louder, and I now have no purpose for this, so I'm going to give it away to one of you guys by doing a post on my Instagram. Go check it out just here and win yourself some pipe. So that's the induction kit now fitted to the I30N. And I think that should really change the way the car drives and sounds as an overall package, but there is only one way to find out, so let's go for a drive. That's your key, but we'll pretend it's the I30 key. Let's see how it does. So Benji's in the passenger... You're in the driver's seat actually, aren't you?
I am.
You are in the driver's seat because you're driving, so... I want to know what your thoughts are on the car.
Well, I've not like... Obviously I've not kicked its head in yet. But I have got to say, straight away, the steering feels nice, like really responsive. There's no play in the steering or anything. That's good, quite like that. The gearbox feels good. It's quite nice and tight. Similar to the Focuses actually.
Okay.
The one thing I am conscious of is that we are on plastic tyres.
No, we've got one Michelin, so we know we're good.
Oh, which corner was that?
One of them.
So
this one.
So we're good if we're turning, say, right?
Yes, yeah, right
Okay.
corners. So roundabouts are banging.
Right, brilliant, okay. But yeah, otherwise, quite like this. Where's Race? Hey, it pulls nice, that, doesn't it? Love that little, the little blip, the little red matching thing.
It gets going.
Oh,
Jesus Christ. You're giving me a bad name.
But Chris, what I have got to say is, I think you definitely need to get the car's tracking done, because as you can see, it pulls to the right. We're on the wrong side of the road there. So I've got some friends, Awesome GTI.
Yeah.
Because you're a friend of mine, mate. They will welcome you with open arms.
Mi casa, su casa. So here we are at Ben's second home, and I feel a bit out of place because, well, it's
It's all VAG stuff, isn't it, mate?
It is VAG stuff this
it's your
side.
kettle of fish.
BMW that side. That's a bit more you, isn't
This is more me, yeah. This is more where I belong. Hopefully they can straighten out the way this car drives.
So the boys pulled the I30N onto their state-of-the-art tracking ramp. What this does is analyses what direction each of the wheels are pointing on the rear and the front of the car compared to factory specifications. And then they can do minor adjustments to change that and transform the way the car drives.
Surprisingly, even though the damage was mainly on the front on the I30N, the actual tracking of the car isn't too bad, all things considered, since I've just bolted everything up and hope for the best. It's not... You're hoping for green. Green is good, red is bad. There ain't too much red, so hopefully it should track up pretty nice.
So after a small adjustment to the front and rear of the car was all set up ready to go.
Right, Chris from the future here. I just realised I completely forgot to do a before and after on the exhaust, so here is how it sounded before. And this is what it sounds like now, as best as I can mirror the environment. I'm sure some of you will prefer how it sounded before and some of you will prefer how it sounds now. Personally, I think it sounds absolutely carnage now. It's definitely going to suit the future plans that we've got for the car. But anyway, back to the video. So the Geo is now sorted and we are all in the green. And I think we've made a pretty good improvement on how the I30N was at the start of the video.
Mate, absolutely.
New intake, new downpipe, it's got more BHPs and it's tracked up. What more could you want?
What more could you want?
It is now officially awesome. So if
Does this mean you're moving up north now?
No. So if you aren't subscribed to Ben's channel already, Evil GT, the link is going to be in the description.
Oh, thanks, mate.
It's okay, don't worry about it. All of the products that I've used in this video are going to be down there as well, but for now, make sure you subscribe, hit like on this video, and I'll catch you next time.